Started off playing trumpet, started playing guitar, and then started songwriting, and I picked up a small interface, and I was like, I'm just gonna start learning recording and production because it was really interesting to me. And where I went, Belmont, was pretty special because we were able to work on a Neve VR, an API, a weird old API they had in RCAB, and SSL G4000 series, and it's pretty sweet to just like take a major and be able to be on all those boards whenever I wanted. We are in the Complex Studios. Now, this place is called Revival at the Complex since we've refurbed it. It's started by Marlon Ray and Itai Shapira from Rye. It originally was owned by George Massenburg and Earth, Wind & Fire in the early and late 70s. There's also Studio B, which has one of the only GML consoles in the world, and a really great live room with a nice piano over there. And back here we've got the A7Xs, a little RedNet controller that we use from Dante, you know, our MIDI keyboard, and that's kind of where the magic happens. I've been working for Polyverse for almost 3 years now. We came out with I Wish in January 1st of 2016, and I joined in May of that year. We created Manipulator that year, which was pretty incredible. It took a lot of manpower, and the great thing about Manipulator and why it's one of my favorite vocal plugins, if not my favorite, is that I can use it live. There's 0 latency on it, and it's 4-voice polyphony. There's a lot of granular synthesis in it, and a lot of really cool stuff that you can do with formants and modulation. It's just all around one of the best vocal plugins I've ever used. I became aware of ADAMs when I was still in school. Eventually I saved up enough to where I could get something decent, and I walked into the GC in Nashville and demoed a bunch of monitors, and the ADAMs were head and shoulders above everything else. It was just, they were incredible. The clarity on them compared to everything else was stellar. But that was my, my second pair of monitors I ever bought. I'm still working on them today. The ribbon tweeters are probably my favorite part about them, just because they have such a nice amount of sizzle on the high end, but it's not hyped. There are a lot of monitors where I'll work on them and I'll really have to get acquainted with them, and it never took me as long being on any of the ADAM models. Another thing that I really like is translatability. I feel like those monitors translate really well. The low end is also really nice too. To be in that price range, there's a lot of room to waver depending on whether you've got ported or non-ported monitors, and there's always weird stuff that you have to deal with, whether there's not enough bass or too much bass. And the A7Xs just really have a nice amount of bass in them, and it's really clear, it's never muddy. They're just stellar. I think the biggest thing about having the A7s in the writing station is because they just sound so good that it inspires you to just keep tinkering around. And I mean, we have a lot of guys who come in here that are kind of like moving around and going to different studios, and when they plug their drives in here and open up Ableton and start messing around, we have to kick them off at like 2 in the morning because they're still going. It's pretty amazing having a space like this and being able to listen on these sweet things, and yeah. And then guitars just sound great through this. Like with some nice modeling on them, again, it's about the creativity, and being able to sit here and like play a reamp thing and have it sound balls to the wall amazing is just great to spark your creativity and keep working and experimenting and making new stuff.